It's August 18th. You're about to do something that hasn't been done in the music industry before. Tomorrow, you're going to release a visual album that will get you free out of your label deal, and you're gonna buy all of your masters back. And tomorrow of that day, you're gonna release one of the most important pieces of music in the decade. It's going to top the charts and receive universal acclaim. And the most important part of that is, you're free now. So you gained all of these success, but what are you gonna do after this point? This is Frank Ocean's post-Blonde journey. 2017 was probably the busiest year Frank had after 2016, or at least this is what we've seen. On February 21st, DJ and music producer Calvin Harris announced his new song titled Slide, featuring Frank and Migos, that would come out in the next 2 days. The timing was also great for Frank as he went on to expand his brand by premiering the first episode of his radio called Blonded Radio, featuring Slide. Less than a month later, Frank released his first solo single since 2016 called Channel. The song also got premiered on the Blonded Radio's second episode. He went on to release more songs throughout his radio station, such as Biking, featuring Tyler the Creator and Jay-Z, Lens with Travis Scott, a remix of Slide on Me with Young Thug, one of the songs off of Endless, Provider, and as well as featuring on an A$AP Mob song called Wrath. He also had 2 hidden features on Tyler the Creator's Flower Boy and one on Jay-Z's. This year, Frank didn't come out as explosive as his last couple of years in the music scene, as he released only one solo song, which was a cover of the classic song Moon River. Eventually, he captivated the original acoustic atmosphere with a mixture of his own style by using pitched vocals. Even though he took a step back from releasing more music, he still delivered 3 features, which interestingly enough, all of those were hidden features. 2 of them were on A$AP Rocky's 3rd studio album, Teasing, and one of them was Carousel, a Travis Scott song off of the Astroworld. And also good for Frank, as Blonde was certified platinum on July, and before finishing off the year, he premiered 4 special episodes of Blonded Radio between November and December. 2019 saw Frank taking steps forward towards the music industry, with multiple Teasing suggesting a new album. Although, with this being said, the year had a slow start for Frank as he began a series of events on the second half of the year. So let's look at what he did for this year. Between October 17th to 24th, Frank hosted a series of nightclubs in New York named PREP+, which he played some of his new songs and different versions of them. 2 days after the start of his nightclubs, he released his first solo song in almost a year and his first original song in 2 years titled DHL. A few days later, on November 1st, Frank released a new song titled In My Room, indicating that an album rollout is indeed on. 2 days later, on November 3rd, Frank would go on and post a vinyl pre-order for a new song remixed by Arca titled Little Demon, featuring Skepta. Although a few months later, in February of 2020, the sale of the song got cancelled and Frank refunded the pre-orders. And yet again, before finishing off the year, he premiered 4 more episodes of a Blonded Radio from October to December. 2020, the year that changed everything, influenced everything, and Frank was no exception of that either, and us as well, because in my opinion, this year was the start of the downfall of being a Frank Ocean fan. So let's start this year. Frank started the year with good intentions, as he previously announced the release of Dear April and Cayendo, 2 songs with 2 vinyl sides, as they got released physically on March 25th and digitally on April 3rd. And then, pandemic changed everything. During these horrifying times, a lot of us lost our loved ones to the sickness. And again, Frank was no exception either, as he lost his younger brother but due to a car crash. he was only 18 years old. With all the things that happened, Coachella announced that Frank is set to headline the festival at October, which ultimately got cancelled. And as the year ends, Frank entered an era of his career where music wasn't the only thing that was in his attention, and his focus shifted a little bit away from it. Musically speaking, Frank did not release any kind of piece of material in 2021, but outside of music, this was another fruitful year from Frank as he entered the fashion scene on 8th of August with his luxurious jewelry brand named Homer. It seemed that pandemic is getting better and better, and because of that, companies and corporations started to work more regularly, and so has Coachella. On August, it was announced that Frank will be the headline of Coachella in 2023, a safe year for the world and a lot of times for Frank to practice for his set. On September, he made his first public appearance since a few years on Met Gala. Things were looking more and more hopeful as few days later, it was reported that Frank is shopping his new album to different music labels. But even with this news, nothing happened. The conditions stayed radio silence until Frank premiered another episode of Blonded Radio on Ritual, but this time it featured an unreleased 9-minute song titled Come On World, You Can't Go. A warm song divided by 2 parts, which is dedicated to the grief he experienced for his brother. Again, the year was nothing but a pack of dust as he didn't release any music material. But going forward, on June, it was reported that Frank is in talks with A24 and 2AM to write and direct his first movie ever. Now, if you're wondering what 2AM is, it's basically a London-based company backed by the A24 themselves. 4 months later, Frank revealed his new weekly radio show on Apple Music called Homer Radio, which is described as an office soundtrack. Time flew by, and that leads us to this year saw Frank names on headlines, but again, without releasing any music. So where is the start of all these headlines? Well, let's fast forward to April. The time has come. His long-awaited Coachella set, which dictates his first performance in 6 years. And how did that go? Not only had it begun his performance nearly an hour after its scheduled time, but also because of it, he had to end his set early as well. No live stream, no excitement to perform, nothing but disappointment, as he even went far, cancelling his second set, citing a leg injury. More rumors surfaced that take us back to 2020. Pre-2020, Frank was obsessed with nightlife. This obsession was introduced and embraced by Frank himself previously on Blonde, but this time he wanted to shape his third studio album completely with this theme and atmosphere, and it meant that tracks like DHL, In My Room, Dear April, and Cayendo were all supposed to be on the album as well. The album was planned to drop on 2020, but with pandemic seeing the light of day, the album saw the darkness of the night as its breath were taken away. Now, Frank is not a stranger to music leaks by any mean. One of his most famous unreleased tracks is Wise Men, which later on got sampled on Drake's For All the Dogs. But on May 2nd, a song that marked the collaboration between Frank and Rosalia had surfed online with its music video titled Changes. The music video features cameo appearances from A$AP Rocky, Navy Blue, and A Slow Thigh. Though later on, we found out that the song is scrapped and most likely was going to be on a scrapped studio album as well. A few months goes by, and Frank returns to Instagram, and on November 7th, he posted a new snippet. Play way more laid back than I did when I was my younger self, which was followed by another snippet 1 month later, where the video shows him working in the studio. But back to music leaks, because multiple songs from 2020 surfaced online, which the most markable ones are Coral New featuring Bon Iver and Feeling Gone featuring Calvin Harris, which again, both of them were scrapped. At this point, it's known to a lot of people that Frank is a perfectionist, whether you look through his catalog or hear this from his collaborators. And when Frank sees this much gap since his last record, it's no wonder to think that he's anxious as how to come back to make up for all these years of absence, how to come back with an album that is an overall improvement to Blonde. Seeing Frank trying to be an icon in other parts of the industry, such as fashion and cinema, is good as he takes inspiration from key people like Kanye West and Pharrell, but it doesn't add on to his legacy if he never let his works see the light of day. The works that primarily made him the man that he is, the works that made him Frank Ocean.